All right, guys. Today we're going to talk a little bit about multiplication. Now, the first thing I want you to know about multiplication is when we're talking about multiplication, this multiplication sign, we can literally think of it as the words groups of. So it's saying 35 groups of 421. Now, one way I like to think about this is, and a lot of people mention this, is the idea of repeated addition. Multiplication is the same thing as adding over and over and over. So, for example, 35 times 421 is like adding 35 plus 35 plus 35 plus 35 plus 35 plus 35 over and over and over until you've added it together 421 times, which is a ridiculous amount. Now, that would take a long time to do that. That is why we introduced the idea of multiplication. Now, one thing that I want you to know about multiplication is that when we multiply 35 times 421, it's very similar to addition in that multiplication is commutative, meaning that the order doesn't matter. It's the same thing as multiplying 421 times 35. Both of those things mean the same. So if I have 35 groups of 421, or if I have 421 groups of 35, both of those mean exactly the same. Now, when we multiply, because they mean the same thing, it doesn't really matter how I choose to write this out, but I like to line up my place value. I generally like to put the smaller number on bottom just because I think it's easier to multiply. Now, the biggest thing to remember, guys, when we're multiplying is our place value. Now, I'm going to underline the tens place and the ones place here of this factor 30, which is my smaller number. Now, a lot of people use this method called the turtle method to make it green, where we multiply first by the ones place. Now, when we're multiplying by the ones place, we're kind of splitting this into two problems. And the first problem I'm going to look at is 21 times 5. So what we do here is we're going to multiply that ones digit 5 by each of our digits in 421. So starting off, I'm going to say 1 times 5 is 5. And now we're multiplying 5 times the tens digit. So 5 times 2 tens gives me 10 tens, or 100. I'm going to put a 0 here. And then because that's 10 tens, the same as 100, I'm going to put a 1 up here. Now I'm doing 5 times 4 hundreds. 5 times 4 hundreds gives me 20 hundreds, plus this 1 extra 100 up here is going to give me 21 hundreds. And 21 hundreds is the same as 2,100. So we get a total of 2,105. Now, that answers this question, 2,105. That tells me the answer to 421 times 5. But we're not looking for that. We're looking for 421 times 5, which tells me that I still need to multiply 421 times 30, which is this digit here. Notice it's 30 because that 3 is in the tens place. So one interesting thing you're going to notice is that when you multiply by 30, and this is going to be true for any tens digit, you're always going to get a 0 here in the ones place. And if you don't believe me, if you multiply anything by any multiple of 10, so 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, and so forth, you're always going to get a 0 in the ones place. Now, because of that, we can actually just go down here and we can put a 0 in the ones place when we're multiplying 421 times 30. Now, a lot of people have a tough time thinking of this 3 is 30, but you really want to make sure that you remember that that 3 is in the tens place, so it stands for 30. So next I'm multiplying 3 tens times 1, 1. 3 tens is 30 times 1, 1 would give me 30, and you can see a 30 there. Now I'm going to multiply 3 tens times 2 tens. It's like multiplying 30 times 20. A really easy shorthand to do that is just multiply 3 times 2, which is 6. And I'm going to tell you that 3 tens times 2 tens, or 30 times 20, would give me 600. And notice that 6 is in the hundreds. And then we're going to multiply 3 tens times 4 hundreds. So it's kind of like multiplying 400 times 30. So I'm just going to do 4 times 3 is 12. And I'm going to tell you that 400 times 30 would be 12,000. And you'll notice we have that in the thousands place. Now, from this point, I know that the answer, we'll write this down. I know that the answer to 421 times 5 is 2,105. And I know the answer to 421 times 30 is 12,630. I want to combine those together. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add these two pieces together, which is going to give me this total of 14,735. So when we're thinking about multiplying, the biggest things to think about are make sure you remember that multiplication means groups of adding over and over and over. Multiplication is commutative, so the order can be flipped. It doesn't matter. And then think about this method of multiplying by the ones and then multiplying by the tens. And I would like you guys to give this a shot.